Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making chicken noodle soup and we're doing it for two reasons. The first being it's a remake of what I did in December, so that's kind of what I'm doing this month. The other reason is it looked so simple that I can't possibly mess this up like I did the recipe last week. I need this win, I need it for my ego, I need it for my soul, and I need it for you guys to put your trust back in me. Be like, oh, Aaron can handle this stuff. But last week was a good example of crap happens. So don't let a failed recipe ruin cooking for you. Learn from it. If you can't learn any lessons, just be like, maybe that one wasn't for me. Let me try something else. Case in point, chicken noodle soup. I'm also looking forward to this because the recipe seems simple enough that if in the future I do start feeling sick, I can run to the store real quick, grab this stuff, and make it quickly and also without a lot of brain strain, so I can handle doing this while if I'm starting to feel sick, getting that kind of sickness coming on. All that being said, let's run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. Carrots, celery, garlic, chicken, onion powder, thyme, chicken broth, pasta, lemon, salt, and pepper. First step, we're kind of back to our bread and butter of doing some prep step work. And in the prep step, we need to dice the carrots, dice the celery, dice the chicken, and then also mince the garlic. And remember, this is soup, we're gonna be eating with a spoon, so try and make everything bite-sized to fit on the spoon. We don't want a huge chunk of chicken, which was another issue that I mentioned with the recipe that I made in December. Those were big old pieces, so dice it small, and hopefully that doesn't cause it to overcook. You're gonna be able to learn from my mistake here if that is the case, but I suspect it should be fine. We'll see. The next step, now that we have everything prepped and ready to go, we're going to take the carrots and the celery, put that in a Dutch oven with some oil, cook that for about 5 minutes until it's tender. And then once that's done, add in some garlic for about a minute. The next step is to add the chicken, the onion powder, and the thyme, and then we're going to kind of let that cook for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally just to kind of get all the sides of the chicken making contact with the pan. But don't stress, because obviously we're still going to add broth and whatnot later and then boil it. So the chicken will cook through from that. This is, I think, just to add like a little color, add a little depth of flavor, getting some of that stuff mixing and mingling before drowning it in broth. Now we want to add the broth and bring it to a boil. Now that it's all boiling, we want to add in the pasta and then cook for, I believe it says 10 minutes, but this is one of those ones you probably, I mean, obviously look at the box because this is just to cook the pasta. So mine says, I think 8 to 10. So at 8 minutes, I'm gonna check it. And if it's tender enough, cut it there. But obviously, use your best judgment. You can always taste the pasta and then be like, we're good to go. So just cook the pasta. Add the pasta to the boiling soup and cook it. Now that the pasta is perfect, next is to add in some lemon juice and then add some salt and pepper to taste. So take a little spoon, take a taste, add salt and pepper according, and then kind of rinse and repeat until it's at the flavor that you want. So now here we have it, our beautiful chicken noodle soup. And I realize now that my taste test here, I just tasted it to add in salt and pepper. So I feel like it's gonna be a little underwhelming of a reaction because I kind of already know what to expect. But to keep up with tradition, I'm going to still do a taste and then we're going to critique it. Honestly, that's pretty good. Not a whole lot of complaints from me on that one. I left it sitting there for a little bit while I filmed a few things. And I mean, the recipe says to let it sit for 10 minutes to cool off, but it definitely kind of solidified the flavor a little bit. Maybe it's just the fact that it was so hot when I was tasting it that it kind of like burnt my taste buds a little bit. But right now, it definitely tasted real good. Maybe I'm just hungry, but I'm excited to eat this after I finish filming. The only thing kind of critical that I will say is there's a lot of noodles in there. But I guess it's one of those situations where it's like you kind of just want to use the whole box so you don't really have like any left over. But I'd almost say like half a box is probably, I guess it depends on like what you're into. Like, are you into more of the broth or are you into more of the noodles? And I feel like I'm more of like broth with noodles kind of like floating around in there versus this is very like noodle heavy. Like I kind of scooped out extra broth into there, but that just means there's less broth. At some point I'm gonna have pretty much just noodles. So that would be pretty much my only critique is maybe just use less noodles or use more broth and then you just have more soup. But kind of that's the only thing that I can think of. I would be curious to try, instead of like cooking the chicken like a rotisserie chicken and then just kind of shredding that, obviously you'd probably have to add that maybe at the end, like after it boils and then while you're letting it cool, just to kind of sit in there for a little bit. Because you don't need to cook it because it's already cooked. And also, there's no, like there's onion powder, but there's no whole onions. So I'd be curious how that would work if I added onions to like the carrot and celery step. Would that add some more flavor, more texture? I mean, it would add more texture because you're now adding another object in there. But I don't, like in terms of flavor, like is the onion powder versus that, how would that play out? Or would I do both? And then it would just be kind of like extra oniony. But those are the only things I can really like think of to try differently. But the recipe itself, out of the park. Definitely a massive improvement. And honestly, not much harder than the original recipe. There's just a few more ingredients, but it's just kind of dumping a handful more things into a pot. We're gonna be bookmarking this recipe, add it to the Make Again folder, and hopefully you will try it after all this because it's easy, it's wintertime, you gotta get cozy, stay warm, perfect recipe right here. Low effort, probably about 30 to 40 minutes of time it takes, but I mean, 20 minutes of that is actually probably more than that, because it's kind of 10 minutes of the chicken cooking, which is mostly hands off, then boil, and then 10 minutes of letting the pasta cook. So all of that right there is mostly just like, if you're in the area, you're good, but not a whole lot of hands-on being active. So anybody can do this. It's easy, it's delicious. You got it. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.